For as long as you or I have known, virtual reality has always kind of been a thing. Whether or not it has ever been worth the investment, however, has and still is more definitely up for debate. Had you asked me 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would have been leaning towards no myself, but in recent years, VR has just been getting better and better. Software and hardware support has been rapidly improving and the technology is genuinely amazing. With the recent breakthroughs in mixed reality, the line between the virtual and reality are slowly beginning to blur. AAA titles are actually getting financial support, Apple is jumping into the spatial computing space, and I'm so excited to see what is next to come, especially to a more consumer-friendly level. However, as excited for the future as I am, I'm going to take you back in time by 4 years to a game that is still regarded as the greatest VR title of all time. A VR title that brought about life into one of the most loved franchises ever, and that game is Half Life Alyx. My name is BigWynter, and let's dive right in. Now, whilst this game is 4 years old as of this recording, it wasn't until 2024 that I actually picked the game up. And to be honest, if you didn't tell me this game was a 4-year-old title, I would have absolutely no idea. Because even on my Quest 2 with its fairly outdated hardware and displays at this point, the game still looks incredible. A lot of the games that have been released since Half-Life Alyx do not even compare to it in terms of graphical fidelity, the sheer programmed physics, and both length and quality of the story. But let's break it down into smaller chunks to see why this game is considered to be the GOAT of VR titles. First and foremost, I think it's important to look at why Half-Life Alyx was so well received in the first place. Well, it was developed and published by Valve alongside the release of the Index, which at the time was the most impressive consumer-focused VR product available, and to this date still holds the number 2 spot on the Steam hardware survey despite being approximately 4 times the cost of the Quest 2. Not only were Valve injecting life into one of the most adored franchises of all time, they needed a flagship title to help drive sales of the Index, and they needed the game to showcase everything VR could do, and boy did they deliver. From a graphical standpoint, again, even on my Quest 2, I think this game looks unreal. Whilst I'm sure there are titles out there that are capable of beating Alyx on pure graphical fidelity alone, when you take into account the art style and the world building of Half-Life, I think Valve absolutely nailed it. I found myself routinely getting lost in both the small texture details as well as the vast scale of some environments. I can guarantee that I am not alone in my reaction to the opening scenes of the game. This looks so good, man. Another way in which Half-Life Alyx really shines is how it implements physics, and I think it further reinforces my point earlier, that Valve are really pushing the boundaries of the time to show what VR was really capable of. From 3D spatial puzzles and minigames to actual physical spatial puzzles you have to solve with your body, Valve are really pioneering what it meant to put together a VR game. Even down to the physics of a sealed bottle on a train, it seems like anything is really possible, and if you're creative enough, you can absolutely find a solution. And that's the magic. To narrow down the physics even further, I think the gunplay and combat are so expertly done. The weapon and the reload animations work exactly as you'd expect them to, and the inventory system, whilst incredibly simple, is super well polished. Unlike a lot of VR games that tend to be very arcadey, survival, or open world, Half-Life Alyx is a straight single-player narrative-driven game, and as such, the game does not send you on a goose chase looking for pointless shit. It's ammo, resin, and health. By limiting the player's resource options, it left Valve the option to really polish the ease of use of the inventory system to let the player focus on the game at hand. I think the crafting system is similarly well done. It's simple in terms of the resources you use, hits you in the face with some sweet dopamine after a short puzzle, and then hands you back this WMD it just concocted in front of your eyes. And finally, where I think the game really stands out, even among much newer titles, is the story. Now, I'm gonna say it, and you really might not like it, but I never really played Half-Life 1 or 2. I played a handful of Half-Life 2 back in the days of the orange box, but I didn't really care for it at the time, and if you asked me what happened in them, I really couldn't tell you. But despite that, I really liked the story of Half-Life Alyx. While some of it did go over my head at the time and I had to have my community update me in real time, I really enjoyed it. The whole thing was streamed over on Twitch, so please drop me a follow to see what VR adventure we dive into next. I think the voice acting was done superbly and was really well polished. The pacing of the game was also done really well. It was fast enough that I was not getting bored and overly sidetracked, but slow enough that I was understanding exactly where I was at within the story, and it allowed me to explore my curiosities, which I was then further rewarded for doing so. It's been a really long time since a story game had me thinking about it whilst I was off doing other things, but Half Life Alyx genuinely got me good. And whilst it seems like I've done nothing but sing praise, the last thing I really want to touch on is the movement and the locomotion. Whilst I didn't really have any issues personally, I know there were a fair few people who did get motion sick with this game, especially much closer to launch. The game gives you the option of smooth locomotion and smooth camera turning, which is honestly my preferred method in most VR games, or by default it allows you to move by teleporting and gives you snapping for the camera turning. I honestly just left the locomotion and camera turning as it was by default, which allowed me the flexibility to move around freely with the joystick when I wanted, or I could teleport forwards for quicker bursts of speed. I know teleporting seems like lazy locomotion to some, but I actually think it works really nicely and intuitively here. I totally get why Valve did it this way too, as smooth locomotion results in motion sickness for more people than teleporting does. And as Half Life Alyx was a lot of people's first time playing a full-length AAA VR game, they needed to make sure as many people as possible had the best experience. And as a whole, I truly think that is what this game delivers. It gives you a truly special experience in VR as one of the few complete VR games. Even 4 years on, Half Life Alyx is still selling for $49.99, which I know is fairly steep relative to most VR games, so I totally understand if you wanted to wait for a Steam sale or something, but if it ever does go on sale and you have a headset, I implore you to give it a go, and I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Playing a game like this gets me so excited for the future of VR. We had a ton of good things come out of 2023 in the VR space, and I just know that 2024 is going to be such a banger. The Valve Decade has been leaked and discussed for so long at this point, and I think with its release, VR is going to start moving at such a fast and accessible rate, and I'm pumped to see what Valve releases as a title alongside it. But with that said, let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below. Are you going to give it a go? Have you played it already? What did you think? Let me know what you'd like to see next on the channel. Like and sub if you enjoyed. It helps me out a ton with the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and much love.